welcome. I'm Marchant Johnson with Love Life Coaching, and I'm super excited today because I have a first-time guest who I've wanted to interview for several years now, and that is the wonderful Mat Shaffer. Welcome, Mat.
Hi, Michelle. So nice to be here. Happy to be here on your event. I love it.
So happy to have you here and really excited about tapping into your wisdom. So before we jump in, Mat, I want to give those who may not be as familiar with you or your work a little bit of a formal introduction. Mat Shaffer is an experienced, intuitive coach for women craving deep connection and personal empowerment so they can experience freedom, joy, and fulfilling relationships in all areas of their life. He works with thousands of clients worldwide through his coaching programs and online courses and touches millions of lives through his YouTube channel and speaking from stage across the United States. And now you're on our virtual stage, reaching women all around the world. And I do want to say, ladies, before we jump in, you have to check out Mat's YouTube channel because he's totally rocking it out on YouTube. Little shameless
Come
plug
on over.
Matt.
Yeah, we'll put a link in, right? We'll put a link in so they can check it out.
There you go. There you go.
Beautiful.
So, and I'm really excited about our topic today because I know that you really give women a lot of insights into understanding things about men and about themselves and how to have successful relationships. And today we're going to talk about 4 surprising ways to draw him close. So you want to just jump in right there, Mat? Should we just dive in?
Absolutely. And I think before we dive into these 4 things is to really get grounded in the fact that men and women truly we need each other. There are things that men and women provide to each other that are truly special and truly magic. And this is the interdependence of the masculine and the feminine, right? So I want the women, a lot of women that, I work with, they have these beliefs, right? That if they depend on a man or if they need something for a man, that it somehow means that there's something wrong with them, right? Or that they're weak. Have you ever encountered that, Michelle?
Absolutely. Or they feel needy, like they feel like
that it's something
needy.
that it's needy of them. And so I want to dispel all that and just say that, it is natural for you to want to be in connection with men, and it's natural for men to want the same because we're biologically wired to be in relationship with each other. It's called the dependency paradox. And we actually are stronger, when we are connected, and we can take bigger risks as individuals when we have the stable base of a relationship to return to. So again, don't feel bad about the fact that you want a relationship or that you feel there's something you need from men, because there are, right? And so let me just tell you a little bit about the interdependence of the masculine and the feminine. Now, the masculine truly does need things from the feminine in relationship. In every relationship, you have a masculine energy partner, right? And a feminine energy partner. This one's going to be more dominant in one than the other. Generally speaking, in our heteronormative relationship, right? The man is going to be the masculine dominant energy partner and the woman's going to be the feminine, right? And the masculine is craving certain things and needing certain things from the feminine. The masculine is looking to be seen and acknowledged for what he's doing in the world. We want to be acknowledged and respected by the feminine for what we're doing. And that's a really important principle that you can apply to all of your relationships with men. Anytime a man is doing something that you appreciate, that you enjoy, or that you want to encourage, it is so important for you to let him know, because few things make a man happier or light him up more than to get acknowledged by a woman that he cares about. Does that make sense, Michelle?
Not only does it make sense, Mat, I think it's almost impossible to overemphasize how essential that is, because over the last few years, I've done these man panel events where I interview all male experts. So to 20, 30 at a time, I've done this for the last 5 years. And I can't even say in how many ways and how many times I've had men emphasize what you just said. So it's not only makes sense, but I think it's like, we can't emphasize this enough kind of thing.
Yeah. And the range of things that you can acknowledge a man for doing in the world can range from something as simple as like taking out the garbage, right? Or remembering to put the toilet seat down, all the way up to, maybe he just shakily and uncomfortably tries to be vulnerable with you emotionally for the first time. and it might be really scary for him. And like, that's one of those big moments where you want to reinforce and encourage that behavior by letting him know how much it meant to you, right? And the greatest way you can acknowledge a man for what he's doing in the world is by telling him how it makes you feel. Right? Men we love to make a woman feel good through our actions, right? So by you saying, hey, when you did that, it made me feel good. It made me feel safe. Like, he's going to get lit up by that because he is invested in your emotional well-being. You see what I'm saying? And so like truly like, and so that's one really important aspect of the interdependence of what men need from women. And another thing we really need from women, what we are looking for and seeking either consciously or unconsciously is to be set free emotionally. We are craving freedom to express our emotions. We're seeking and craving freedom, and women embody that freedom, right? Because women live their lives connected to their feelings, connected to their heart, and operating from that space. And men, most of us at least, have been conditioned to see our feelings as weakness and liabilities. Because when we're out in the world, it can be a weakness and a liability to get upset, right? If somebody treats us harshly or screws us over or whatever, right? So we spend all of our days, and a lot of us were conditioned by our parents, especially if you had a father who was from, the greatest generation or from these generations that went to war, right? These men were pounded into them that if you were in your feelings, you could die. And they pass that belief onto their kids. And now you're dealing with the aftermath of that, right? So like, but with a woman is one of those few safe spaces where we can be liberated and feel safe enough to express our emotions and feel our emotions. So any opportunity you have to like allow a man to step up and feel and express how he's feeling is really powerful. Mm-hmm. So that's just a super important aspect of the interdependence of the masculine and the feminine. And then the other side of it, right, is what do you need from men? And this is, based upon my work and my studies of this material, is that, you are looking to feel heard and feel safe by the masculine. You want a man to make you feel safe. And what I find with my clients, is that when a woman doesn't feel safe, she will create that safety for herself, often by stepping into her masculine energy. Have you found that working with your clients, Michelle?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I've even experienced it myself in past relationships because I met and married my husband at age 43. So I became a first-time bride at age 43. So I had a long and winding and rough and bumpy road to love myself. And in some of my past relationships, if I didn't feel like the man was stepping up, and I didn't understand maybe some of the ways to invite him to step up into that masculine, and I didn't feel safe or secure, I could do it myself. And I would step into that masculine role, that masculine energy. It wasn't comfortable. It wasn't what I really enjoyed or wanted, but I could do it.
Yeah, it's not what you want, but you will do it. And a lot of women, they're not even doing it consciously. They just subconsciously, will slip into their masculine energy, which then will diffuse and collapse the polarity of relationship, which we're going to talk about in a second. But so and just as the masculine is looking to be set free by the emotional connection of the feminine is looking to create groundedness, right? And looking to be grounded and feel safe through the masculine energy. So just as men are looking to be set free, women are looking to be grounded and feel safe and to be provided like a stable physical container, right? For them to be in their feelings and to be able to express and emote and feel safe while doing it. So fundamentally at the bottom of all this, both men and women are looking for safety at a deep level, but they want it in different ways, you see? And so like, it's important to recognize that we both want the same things. And if we're both feeling safe within our own energy in the relationship, you're in your feminine, you're soft, you're grounded, you're trusting, you're open and surrendered, and he's empowered. He's in his masculine. And if you're both in each respective side of the relational container, which is the visualization I use when I'm talking about relationship, you have polarity. You have this magnetic attractive force and that's when everything's working and flowing and going beautifully, right? So a lot of problems in relationships happen, Michelle, when polarity collapses, right? Either because a man isn't feeling safe and isn't empowered in his masculine, and a woman, steps into her masculine and becomes the doer, to create her own sense of safety and manufacture that. And so that's so often what I'm working through and what I'm unraveling with my clients and helping them regain polarity in their relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a really, really powerful concept. And it's a struggle for a lot of women out there, because I know a lot of the women in our audience here have, out of choice or out of necessity, kind of been put into that role where they are doing everything, handling everything, and we're capable of doing it. We're not necessarily thrilled that we're doing it, but sometimes we don't know how to unwind that when we start relating to a man. I mean, we've had to support ourselves completely, and I don't just mean financially, but I mean, in life. And and it's hard sometimes to kind of unwind that and allow someone else to be there for us, to support us in those ways that men can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that it's so hard for women a lot of times to release control, right?
Yeah.
To release control and to trust that a man will be able to step up for them. But I can tell you right now, we as men, if we're in a relationship with a woman and we get a sense that she is unwilling or unable to sort of like let her walls down and let us, be the drivers in the relationship. Like if we feel that, she's planning the dates for us, she's telling us the best route to get from A to B, she's the one that has to control because she may have been a single mom, or because she's always had to be that person, that she can't let it go. That's what leads to men checking out. Because men, they're like, well, if I can't be the masculine force in this relationship, I'm going to stop feeling it. Because that's the thing, so much of this with men particularly is not happening consciously. Right? Men are not very emotionally aware at the conscious level. Well, we're either feeling it or we're not. We're either attracted or we're not. We're not looking at what feelings and beliefs is this rooted in. Like men, for the most part, are just running on instinct, right? And running on autopilot, But if a man, isn't allowed to feel like he is the masculine force in the relationship, it's going to cause him to pull back and check out, really oftentimes unconsciously, because he's just not feeling that polarity. So one of the first biggest tools I really emphasize with my clients that I want to share with you as sort of like a first key to drawing a man close is to master the cycle of invitation and space. Invitation and space. I hear a lot of people talking about leaning back as like, this holy grail of like relationship advice. And a lot of what I do with my clients is warn them against, just unconditionally being in a leaning back state. Because have you noticed that, Michelle, that like if women are so committed to leaning back all the time, a lot of times it can backfire on them. Have you encountered any of that in your own work?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because you do need to know who you are. You do need to be willing to express your wants, your needs, your preferences. This is not about just being, like a non-entity where you're just there. And I think sometimes that leaning back gives the impression that you like no longer have needs, wants, opinions, desires.
Mm-hmm.
You can't express some of those things, that you just like become passive in a relationship.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's what we're talking about.
Not at all. And so what I encourage my clients to do is embrace the cycle of invitation and space, where you as the feminine are constantly inviting and evoking a man to step deeper into his masculine power, right? So you are making an invitation and usually through giving him a feeling statement, right? It would feel so good to go on an adventure date. I would love it if, we did this. Haven't you ever wanted to try that? This feels like it would be really fun to me, right? You make an invitation to him, anchored in a feeling statement or some other sort of incentive. And then you give him space, which is different than leaning back. You want to give him the space and trust that he's going to be able to do it. Because if you say, hey, I would love to take an adventure with him, then you get to honor and respect and give him the space to plan it and to make it happen. And you get to make a decision, right? Because you might see the way he's planning the route and it may not be the fastest route. And so then you get to ask yourself, what's more important, getting there getting there in the fastest time or giving this man the space to make the decisions for himself. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what I end up doing with a lot of my clients is they'll say, but I know a better way to do the thing. And I'm like, okay, I get it. Right? You may know a better way to do it, but do you really want to emasculate him if it doesn't really matter? You know, like, because this is all. So again, in every situation that you're in with this man, master the cycle of invitation and space, and with every success, and then when he does step forward into the space and does the thing that you want him to do, whether it be on a trip or in the bedroom or anywhere, right? Whenever he does the thing, right? Going back to where we started, you want to acknowledge him for it. Oh my gosh, I had so much fun when we went on that trip, or I had so much fun when we tried that position, or like whatever it is, like give the man some, kudos, right? For what he did. And he's going to feel, oh, wow. So she asked me to do this thing. She invited me to do the thing. She trusted me to do the thing. And then it made her happy. Right. And then he's going to, that makes him feel more empowered and more in his masculine. And that's how you can really cultivate polarity in a way that gets you, what you want to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just want to put the exclamation point on a couple of things you said, Matt, because I think they're so important that I just want to reemphasize. The first one is I think having these requests or these invitations from a feeling kind of place, where you are saying, I would so enjoy, or it would make me so happy, or you know what I've been thinking would be so much fun for me. In those invitation kind of ways, coming from a feeling kind of place, a man hears that differently than if you just say, take out the garbage. If I say, yes, oh, it would be so nice if you take out the garbage because that is really stinky and I would feel so much better in our house. I mean, that might seem like an elaborate way to ask someone to take out the garbage, but my husband's going to hear that and respond to it differently than if I just say, take out the garbage.
Yeah. I did a whole video on that called activation versus assertion. Like you always want to be operating as much as you can with a man if you want to keep him empowered and keep polarizing the relationship, to make activating statements, invitations, feeling statements, encouraging requests, right? Rather than commands. Like, because if you're operating from assertion, he may do the thing, but you got to think about when he's doing a thing because you're asserting him to do it. He's doing it so he won't get in trouble. He's doing it so he won't, suffer your wrath, or so he won't annoy you, or because you're telling him to do it. And guess who you're reminding him of when you're telling him to do things and he's doing things to not make you upset? What other woman in his life could you be reminding him of? Mama. Right. And so when you operate from assertion, a lot of times you run the risk of activating his mama trauma, which is something that I talk about a lot, that I came up with, that basically every man has this, almost every man that I've ever known, including myself, we have this sort of like fundamental sort of like mother wound, to where like one of the things that was most traumatic to us growing up was when we were in trouble with our mom. Like nothing was worse than being in trouble with your mom when you were a kid, And so like when we start getting like asserted upon by the woman in our life over and over and over again, we start operating from, oh my gosh, I don't want to make mom angry, and because there's an anxiety, there's like an anxiety at the egoic level that exists around, mom, it's your mama trauma. So like you want to really, as much as possible, avoid just arbitrarily commanding a guy to do things, because you will run the risk of, starting to be seen as his mother, which is, there are a few things more depolarizing to a man than having him look at the woman he shares a bed with in any way, shape, or form like his mother. Okay, so.
Right. Well, and the other thing that I think is important is to not only speak from a feeling place, but also make sure you're making a clear request. Because I've had a lot of men tell me, and you can probably back me up on this, Matt, men don't speak hint. Right? So if we're like hinting around, like coming back to the garbage example, I can say, "Ooh, that garbage stinks." My husband will go, "I don't really smell it." And I'm like, the hint was take out the garbage. He's like, "I don't really smell it."
Men aren't mind. That brings up a really good point, right? Men aren't mind readers. We don't know. We do not necessarily understand subtlety. We don't know what you're thinking. We don't know what you're feeling. We need you to be an example of that, right? We truly, truly, truly do. It's super duper important. And another important principle sort of within that, which I also did a video on this, is that men, the thing that most women aren't giving men that they really need to do is they need to give them context to understand why they're asking something. And I don't mean in a defensive way. I don't mean in a oh, I'm trying to litigate this request with you, but helping a man understand the context of why you're asking for something. Hey, I'd really like it to, go on this, I'd really like to go on an adventure date, because I've always wanted to, be out in the woods with you. And I remember we had a date back when we first started dating where we did that and it was super fun. And I really love to have that again. Okay. Now it's just not an arbitrary request, because remember when we're growing up, our mom is saying, go do that. And then we say, why? And then she says, what?
Because I told you so.
Because I'm your mother and I told you so, right? So again, when you make an arbitrary commanding statement or even an arbitrary request for a man and you don't give him the context to understand why it's important to you, i.e. how it'll make you feel or what sort of benefit it's going to give you, you run the risk of activating his mama trauma. So these are just all things that when you're making these invitations and when you're encouraging and inviting a man to step up and step into his power, you want to kind of keep all these things in the back of your mind. And I know it sounds a little complicated, but I promise it isn't. Once you just get into the habit of doing that. But I honestly find for most women, it's not the invitation piece that's as much of the issue as it is giving a man the space to do it. So that's going to require surrender and trusting. And also trusting that if you continually make invitations and give him space, especially in the early stages of dating somebody, and he just will not do it, then that gives you a very clear indicator of kind of where he's at and maybe whether or not he's able to be the man that you need or that you want in relationship, right? Because what did Maya Angelou say? When people show you who they are, believe them, right? So men can talk all day, but if you're they can say all sorts of stuff, right? But if you're making reasonable invitations to him in a warm and loving way, and he's basically like, yeah, I'm all right over here, I ain't going to do that, just by the way he's showing up, then, that's feedback for you. And you get to ask yourself, do I want to be in this relationship with this man? It's just something to think about.
Yeah, and I think your point about the space is really, really key. And that was another thing I was going to put the exclamation point on, because when we make these requests, we make these invitations, we very well may feel that we definitely have a better way to make it happen than they do. They may be taking a path in planning something or organizing something, and you're thinking, man, he's really going about this the wrong way or the hard way. But if the end goal is to give him that opportunity and see how he shows up and create this win-win scenario, we have to be able to let go and relinquish the control, even if we're 100% convinced we have a far better way of doing it. And that, you're right, is a challenge for a lot of us. I know myself, because I lived 43 years of my life as a single woman, making it happen and doing everything the way I wanted to and thinking that I had all the answers. And then I marry this person and he has some different ideas on how things can and could be done. And I'm like, wow, my ideas are so much better.
Yeah, well, exactly. And they may be, again, right? But what's more important to you? Being in a polarized relationship or being right?
Right. Exactly.
It's an important question, because at the end of the day, unless it is going to severely undermine, the situation and what you're trying to do, if you're continually, and I've experienced this in my own relationships, in some past relationships that I had, if you're continually correcting and micromanaging a man's behavior, guess what? He's feeling wrong all the time. If you're feeling like you need to control stuff and he's constantly seeing that, you're controlling things and pushing things around because you think you know the way better than him, he feels wrong or his way isn't enough. And then again, nothing's going to make a man check out faster or feel heavier to a man than constantly being micromanaged in relationship, right? And again, men are looking to be set free. They're not looking to be, mommied. So it's just important steps, especially when you've been single for a long time, or you've raised kids by yourself, or you have a job that's very masculine. It's going to be, which, a lot of women do, a lot of successful women, like I just started working with a woman who's an EU ambassador. So she travels all over the world doing hugely important government work. Right. And it's like on a certain level, like she's like forgotten how to be in, meaningful, feminine, surrendered intimacy with a man, right? Because so much of her work is extremely high pressure and high responsibility and very masculine. So it's going to take it's going to be a retraining process, which is actually leads very beautifully into another really important key concept to understand when it comes to fostering polarized connection with men and drawing him close, is that you as the feminine, you get to be the conductor of the heart with a man. So the conductor of the heart. So think about like if love is a symphony, right? It's got two major components. It's got the conductor and it's got the musicians, right? In the orchestra. So the musicians are the doers, right? They're the ones with the instruments. And what are they doing? They're looking up to the conductor, to guide them in their actions, right? So you are the conductor of the emotional and communicative aspects of the relationship. So, the cycle of invitation. So what does a conductor do, right? A conductor, makes invitations. It invites the orchestra to rise, right, into a crescendo. It also sets the tempo. So a conductor sets the tempo. So what would the tempo be? The tempo, the pacing of the relationship, right? So the setting of boundaries is a huge component of being a conductor in a relationship. So are you setting positive, constructive boundaries with this man in relationship? Are you pacing him? Especially if you're in the early stages of dating. Like men need boundaries. Like I did a video. I've done videos on all this stuff, but men are craving boundaries. Men are craving structure. Like we live in structured worlds. And to an extent, like we so appreciate, you telling us what you like, you inviting us to do what it is that's going to make you happy, because then it gives us a roadmap or a blueprint, right? A structure to move with things. Otherwise, we don't know. We don't know what the hell's going on when it comes to women, right? And every woman is different, right? What makes one woman happy might make another woman insane, right? So it's important that you, as an individual, like don't assume, oh, well, all women like this. First off, you don't know that. Second of all, don't assume that a man knows anything about your feelings and what makes you happy, right? And so as a conductor of the heart, right? So you're embracing the cycle of invitation in space. You're setting the tempo through positive boundaries. And then another big thing that I really encourage my clients to do as the conductor of the heart in relationship is a conductor leads by example, right? He shows the musicians how he wants them to play, right? Through the example he sets. You get to set an example, right, of what it means to be vulnerable in relationship. If you're looking for a man to drop in and be vulnerable and be in his heart with you, it is up to you to drop in and you get to be that vulnerable, right? You can't ask him to do it. You can't ask him to be open with you while you're, hidden behind the walls of, your masculinity, right? You get to lead by example with that and let him know what it's like, what it means to speak into your feelings and to speak from your heart, because he might not know. He might not have ever done it before. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think one key to this for a woman is to be more in her body and her feelings than in just the thinking part of things. Because I know for a lot of women, myself included, if we start like outthinking our feelings or overthinking our feelings or being totally in our head, it's really not possible in most cases to show up from that place of vulnerability, from heart, from feeling, from emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And men feel us totally differently when we're showing up from that heart center place than it's just all in our heads.
Oh, 100%, right? I mean, if you want a man to feel safe and empowered and to drop in with you, it's not going to happen if you're in your head, if you're stressed out about, everything going on in your life and you're operating from a masculine space. Now, I'm not saying you can't show that you're upset, that you can't show that there's things going on in your life, but I want to really invite you to do it from a vulnerable feminine space, right? And it's actually very important that you do that, because another thing that men love to do is if they see that a woman is upset, a woman that they know, and one of the first things that's going to do is, what do you think one of the first things he's going to think is?
He's going to wonder if he caused it.
What the hell did I do? What did I do? What did I do? Oh my gosh, I'm in trouble. Mama trauma. Whoop. What did I do? Oh my God. Like it's this oh shit reflex that like men have, right? When a woman is mad, or a woman is even if you're preoccupied, like maybe you get home from work and you're still thinking about something that happened at work and it's just rolling around your head and you're checked out, like he's going to be looking at you, staring off into space and being distant and be like, crap, what did I do? Or what did I not do? You see what I'm saying? And so that's why, like, you staying consistently, deliberately, consciously vulnerable with a man, not only is it going to give him permission to do the same, it's also going to help him understand that it's not his fault. Because, if a man is invested in you, he takes a lot of responsibility for your emotional happiness. Like especially if he's secure attachment style, right? Men who are secure attachment style take a lot of responsibility for the emotional well-being of the people around them. And so it's one of those things where, like, if you're not in a good space emotionally, again, give the man, don't assume he's a mind reader, right? Give him context, be an example of being vulnerable and say, hey, I had a really tough day at work today. I'm scared that my boss might, fire me or whatever, just whatever's coming up, share it with him in a vulnerable way that helps him understand that it isn't his fault. And then most important part about this is, and then let him know how he can support you. Because a man's default response to you telling him, about all the stuff going on in your life is he's going to want to fix it. He's like, whoa, why don't you do this? Like, because that's the thing, a man sees a problem, he sees a leaky pipe or a freaking whatever, and he immediately wants to get a tool, ratchet it up, spackle it, throw some duct tape on it. Like, this is what men do, right? So, like, it's important for you and your man to come to an understanding that, maybe all you want is just for him to hold space for you, right? So be able to have the courage to be able to ask a man for what it is that you need. Because if you don't, he might just try to fix it, which might piss you off, right? Because maybe that's not what you wanted. You know what I'm saying? But don't get mad at him if he just tries to fix it if you didn't ask for what you need, right? You got to remember, the male imperative is to fix. So, like, be connected to that, and don't get like, oh, I didn't want you to, give me advice or blah, 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 blah. Like, well, then you should have, it's up to you. Like, it's your responsibility to vulnerably communicate to a man the kind of support that you're looking for. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that is really key. And I can remember, coming back to your earlier point, I can remember in one of my interviews, and I can't remember who it was with, but he said some of his favorite words to hear from his woman were, "It's not your fault."
Oh, it's the best.
Like, just,
immediately,
she's upset, she's having a bad day, to just even like say those words. It's not your fault. I'm just feeling stressed out or worried or afraid or whatever about this or this or this. Then he's like, whew, he's already like able to like listen and be there for her, because he already knows right up front he's off the hook. It's not his fault.
That's right. It's so funny. Like, just hearing you say it made me relax. And I met you today, right? Like, so like just hearing those words. Thank God. Whatever it is, thank God it's not my fault. Like, that's one of those like knee-jerk things. You want to make a man relax. Just tell him it's not his fault, no matter what it is. And he will definitely.
I love your reaction to that. How just hearing me say it, I'm not upset.
It's like Pavlovian. Like, you hear the friggin' bell and your friggin' mouth starts watering, like the Pavlovian dog. It's like a Pavlovian response. I hear someone tell me it's not my fault, because I'm constantly living in a state of anticipation of like, oh God, what did I do now? Like, and most men are, especially if they're naturally supportive, loving men, which a lot of men out there, are, whatever. They're constantly like taking responsibility for the feelings and the well-being of other people. And if something's not going right in the lives of the people that I care about, I'm constantly taking ownership of that, for better or for worse. It's part of why I'm a good coach, right? But it's also part of why I have anxiety, that because I always am putting a lot of pressure on myself. So a lot of men out there are the same, right? But they ain't gonna talk about it like I am.
Right. Right. Yeah, I do think that all we're talking about here is really, really true. And why do you think that it's, besides the socialization things, why do you think it is so difficult for men to be in touch with their emotions? And we've talked a little bit about how you can make it safer for them by being in your emotions and leading from your heart, so to speak. But like, how can we support men in that way more as women, I guess is my question.
Well, I mean, first off, like it's not just the conditioning that makes it hard for men to speak into their feelings. And, it's not just the conditioning piece. It's also the fact that once it's been, because also men don't talk about feelings to each other. We
Right.
don't. We never talk. All we ever talk about is things that we do, things that we've done, money that we're making, girls that we're dating. And this is like the standard male conversation. I generally go a little deeper with my friends just because like I'm always operating from a feeling space. But, most men out there, their measure of value, their metric of value and worth that most men are measured by is what they have created physically in the world, right? So men are constantly looking at each other and talking to each other, being like, look at what I did. What did you do? Oh, you did this. Oh, cool. Let's compare notes on what we did and let's see where we stack up against each other. Like men operate constantly from that doing space in the way that they're communicating with each other. And then, with women, we think we need to be, X amount of successful in order to, be worthy of the woman that we want, right? So our entire sense of our value is predicated on the things that we're doing. How we're feeling is not relevant to, the story most men have created about what their value is based in. You know what I'm saying? So not only are men completely out of practice with it, they don't understand the value of feelings in life and in relationships. So that's why it's a retraining process, and it's helping men understand that connection to feelings and expressing and operating from feelings has a huge amount of value, and and that their feelings matter, because they have made up a story that their feelings don't matter. Only what they have done and the money that they have and whatever that they've created, that's what gives them value.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a retraining process. And so, again, through the cycle of invitation in space, inviting a man, like one of the most powerful things you can do to a man. And this is like, a woman did this and it truly saved my life in my own process, is to really ask a man how he's doing. And by how he's doing, I mean like how he's feeling. Right. And then don't let him shrug it off. Don't let him dismiss it. Don't let him say, oh, I'm doing fine. Right? If you can see that a man is in pain, if you can see that a man is struggling with something, you have a profound opportunity to create a window into vulnerability and to help him heal. Right? Because so many men have suppressed their emotions for so long, they often have, a deep sense that, they have a lot of woundedness and a lot of pain and a lot of frustration and sometimes even some rage. Right? And it's all just been suppressed. And it's like locked down, they're all pressurized, And so if you see a man and he's visibly struggling or whatever, like you have a huge opportunity to help him release some of that by asking him, how are you doing? And if he says, I'm fine, you can say to him, I don't buy that, I lovingly, right? Say like, I don't believe you. No, how are you doing? Like, really? Because so often, like, men never get asked that because men don't ask each other how they're feeling. So
Right.
You as a woman are one of the few humans on the planet, that can ask a man how he's feeling and actually get a vulnerable response. And so, I cannot overemphasize the value that there is in doing that with a man, like truly.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the reasons or one of the ways that men really need women, because I don't think men have that, like you said, from each other. Men have told me it's more like the, hey, dude, slap on the back, or talking about sports team, or like you said, that competitive kind of thing where you're like, well, I did this. Well, how about this? It's kind of like they're measuring. against each other. And that doesn't really create the opportunity for a lot of emotional sharing or bonding or connection, right?
No, it doesn't. And that's where men are comfortable. That's where most men are comfortable operating at. Wow, did you hear the Patriots got beat in the first round of the playoffs? Or, I closed this huge deal last week. Or I went fishing and caught this, amazing snook, or like whatever. Like we're always like, just wanting to talk about the thing that we did or the thing that we saw or the thing that we experienced. We don't want to talk about, we have active resistance to talking about how we're feeling, especially if it's a feeling that's, sad or could convey a sense of weakness or a sense of vulnerability, like, oh, I was upset about this. I'm frustrated with this. I'm stressed out about this, because men feel like they always have to be strong. And that's another important point that, of course, I've also done a video on, but like one of the greatest ways that you can share, that you can help a man really feel like inspire his loyalty and help him feel deeply supportive, is to let him know that like you love him, not just when he's perfect, not just when he's successful, but that you love him unconditionally, right? As long as he's showing up and trying his best. Because that's a big narrative that a lot of men have, because their worth is anchored in their doing. Their worth is anchored in what they're creating, that they think that if at any point they fall off of that and they're not creating, they're not as successful, something's not working, they have a big failure. When you can comfort a man and nurture a man and love him in his failure, and let him know that your love for him is not predicated on his continually being successful, that is one of the most profound, transformative. You will inspire deep love in a man by letting him know that he doesn't always have to be, the knight in shining armor, right? And that you're always going to see him that way, even if he screws up, right? Or even if he fails, he gets fired, whatever. It's not about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was really, really important and really powerfully said. And I think that comes back to creating that safety for him to share his feelings and share his emotions that we talked about earlier. So I have a random question for you. Is it okay if I ask you a random question?
Go for it.
So, Matt, I was out to lunch a few weeks ago with some of my female friends, some of us married, some of us single. And one of my single female friends, she asked me this question, and I think I have a hunch about what you might say here, but I'm really curious to hear. And she said, so if men like to please us and they like to do nice things for us and they like to see us be happy and that sort of thing, why are men resistant to the honeydew list? Like a list of things that you want them to do. And I gave my spin on this, but I want to hear yours.
Well, the honeydew list feels to me like the chore list that we got from our moms when we were little kids, that we couldn't get our allowance until we took out the trash, mowed the lawn, did the 3 things, took out the, So like when we get the honeydew list, it's sort of just this very mama trauma laden, heavy, fixed burden. And it isn't tied to like actually actively experiencing the feelings of a woman. Like there's no dynamic polarized connection between the request and you. It's just this oppressive list of crap that you need done, that he is expected to do. Right. So again, it's heavy. Right. It's not light and freeing. So I think there's got to, and again, and what's his allowance? Sex? Is it you being happy? Like what's it tied to in a way that, what's the allowance he's getting for completing the list, So I definitely, does that make sense? That's just my knee jerk.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I wanted, because that was really pure and honest. And I think it was spot on. I do think it sounds like mama trauma stuff. Because it does that dreaded list we'd get on Saturday mornings that you have to do before you can do anything fun, right?
Yeah, before you can go outside, you got to do these 5 things written on the refrigerator. That's the honeydew. Don't do the honeydew list.
Yeah.
Don't be his mom.
So for women out there, you might want to consider like pacing your requests and giving him that opportunity, that space to respond. And that's another thing, is that if a man doesn't do something in our time frame, not just the way we plan, but like in our time frame, because women have an idea, if you don't do it right now, sometimes that he's not going to respond, right?
Yeah, exactly. And again, that's another thing, the difference between activation and assertion, right? Because when there's a list, it's like, it's not even like it's a request. You're not even giving him an invitation. He doesn't have the bandwidth to say yes or no. It's just assumed that he's going to do the thing, right? It's like he's an employee and this is his list of job responsibilities. And this is a really important point that I'm glad we're touching here, is that like, you never want a man to feel like his relationship with you is work. He works all day. Like he probably works his ass off if he's successful, right? He's out there grinding away, working. His relationship is his sanctuary. A relationship that is functioning and polarized is going to be a sanctuary for him emotionally, and energetically, right? Where he can be vulnerable and he can soften and he can relax. Right. So if the relationship has become a honeydew list to where if he doesn't, complete these responsibilities when he gets home from his work, where he got a list of responsibilities, then, your relationship just becomes work. And then his only sanctuary becomes what? Watching TV, getting drunk, going out with the guys. And like a man is going to find a way to create some chill for himself. He's going to find a way to create some sanctuary. If his relationship becomes work, and he doesn't have the wherewithal to like say that to you, which most men don't, he's going to find his release and his retreat somewhere else. And the sex is going to go away. The vulnerability is going to go away. It creates this chain reaction of stuff. So don't make a relationship, and not to say you don't have to work on your relationship, because I think you do, but don't make the relationship work, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
You don't want your man coming home from work at the end of the day and going, I got to buck up before he comes in through the door, right? You want him to look forward to coming home, to being with you, to spending time with you, and for that to be like that place of joy and satisfaction.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Well, this has been so much fun, Matt. I have loved our conversation. It's been super fun to chat with you, and I really, really like the things you've shared. So thank you so much for being so generous with your wisdom.
It was my pleasure. Yeah, I think we said we'd cover 4. I think we covered like 27. So we got plenty. We got plenty of things to help draw a man close.
Thank you so much, Matt. Really appreciate you once again. Thank you so much. Matt and I are also sending lots of love and blessings to all of you, and appreciate your presence here as well, and hope you'll join us for more. So bye for now.